Good morning. Oh, wow, we're going to try that again. Good morning. So I am Jason Seals, the Department Chair of African American Studies and Ethnic Studies, and it is so good to be here doing Black Liberation Month. So let's clap it up for Black Liberation Month. This month, we have had an opportunity to do a lot of celebration, reflecting, and learning. We've already had programs around the Black family. It was a Black family forum that had an opportunity to kind of examine the Black family and what are some of the assets and strengths, what are some of the misconceptions, but also just thinking about like how as a community do we grow our Black family. We had a presentation about how to love Black women. The theme of this month has really been about the Black family, and so today we're going to have a presentation that gets us thinking about Black relationships and the significance of them in our lives. The following week we'll have a screening of a film about Black fathers called Black Fathers, Tribulations and Successes. And then we'll have our last event, which is called Awakening the Natural Genius of Black Children, which begins to dispel the myths that our children are insufficient or lacking. And so this should be a really robust month of learning and celebration, and so I'm glad that you're here for this event. How many folks came out today just because it was about relationships? Show of hands. Folks come out? Just one person in the back? All right. 2 people. And other folks have come just because they was like, it's Black History Month and I want to celebrate? A few people? How many people said, I want to learn? There we go. That's the masses. So today we have a great, great speaker, educator, activist, a local, I would say I would consider her to be a local legend in the sense of just the impact that she's had. She does a lot of great work with our youth, has been doing work in the community that supports the betterment of our community. And so I want us to give a warm welcome to our guest speaker, Talia Taylor.
So when we think Black male-female relationships, I want to bring it back to basics right quick. Feel free to shout out or raise your hand if you prefer the polite approach. But when you guys hear Black male-female relationships, what is it that you think of? And let me give a disclaimer because I don't know y'all don't really know me like that. I'm very clear there's going to probably be 2 conversations going on at the same time. Let's just address it. There's probably going to be one that comes from a lived experience as a Black person. So we're probably going to be speaking about our own experiences. Then there's going to be another conversation for those who have not known what it's like to be a Black person. It's okay, but maybe some ideas or questions or thoughts or assumptions that you have about Black intimacy or Black relationships. Share that. Share that. Open it up. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the question. When we think Black male-female relationships, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? First thing, just shout it out. First thing, no wrong answers, yes. Wonderful. Precaution?
Just be cautious in general.
Be cautious in general. Powerful? Okay, is your name Davion? Yeah. We went to middle school together. Yeah. Yeah, we did. Tickla, all them. Yeah. Every middle school, yeah. Okay. What else do you guys think of? Hands up if the first thing that came to your mind was like incredible love. Okay. In the back, in the front. Okay. What else?
Thank you. Apparently I need this. Okay. Cool. All right. So I don't want to influence how you're going to go about this too much, but I also want us to think about relationships that you have with your family, because there are men and there are women in our families that most often set the precedent for how we go about relating to other people within our ethnic group or outside of our ethnic group. Okay, so you guys may have come here hoping to have me teach you or give you a history lesson on Black male-female intimate relationships. It's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen today. What I like to do is have us share some of our experiences or frustrations myself included, and we can learn from each other. Or we could just vent. Some people are scared to get into relationships. Some of us are ready to go. It's about to be summertime, people getting ready. So let's talk about it.
Do you find yourself being more attracted to women like your mom? Why or why not?
So if you're interested in dating women, do you find that you are attracted to women that are more like your mom, or do you go as far away from your mom as possible? And the inverse of that would be for the women or the men. If you are dating men, do you find yourself dating people like your father or further away from your father? It's kind of a deep question. Does anybody want to answer that?
My name is Michaela, and I usually end up dating people who are exactly like my dad, in both the good and bad ways. Usually like super creative and artsy, but also can be like escapists in a way. So I usually go for people who are I was very close to my dad, so they're usually exactly like him.
Are you consciously doing that, or do you find that when you sit back and you think about it, like,
It's usually like after like reflection of like thinking about like, well, although a person will do something, I'm like, whoa, that was a lot. I'll just think about it and be like, that was a lot like my dad. I don't search for it, but it kind of just happened.
okay, all right.
Question, general question for everybody, okay? Who's in here heard of the term situationship? That's something? Okay. Anybody in here in a situationship? Are you not supposed to say you are? All right, I wanted to talk a little bit about situationships, but I'll hold off on that. On these Post-it notes, I want you to write your own question or your own grievance that you have regarding any type of relationship that you're in, have been in, or want to be in. And while you're doing that, I'm going to say something. So, right, we try and listen at the same time. So one question that I would probably ask is, why do so many men my age not know what they want? That would be one question. Maybe another one would be, do we have too many options with social media and Instagram, and how is that impacting our relationships? You might even want to ask yourself, why do I want to be in a relationship? What am I looking for? What's my type? I hear this a lot. A lot of people say they haven't been in a serious relationship, or you haven't been in a real relationship. And again, it's not just about intimacy. It's not just about intimacy. So one thing that I'm a firm believer in is that the minute you slide into somebody's DMs, the minute you approach somebody and ask them what their name is and get their phone number and start a conversation, you are beginning a relationship. And a lot of people say, oh, we're not in a relationship, or we're just talking, or we're just doing this. No, you're sharing your time, your money, your attention, your affection, your thoughts with somebody. So you are beginning a relationship. And so I want us to be, go ahead. Debate, give me a debate, let's go.
That's called a friendship. Friends have relationships, but it depends, like I said, that's up to y'all to talk about. That's up to y'all to talk about. Exactly. A real relationship, everybody, when you think of a real relationship, when somebody says that, you're thinking of boyfriend, girlfriend, for sure. Anybody, you be like, if one of your guy friends, any one girl in here, any one of y'all guy friends y'all don't date or nothing, and walk up to you and be like, we're in a relationship. You gonna think he's talking about boyfriend, girlfriend.
No, not necessarily. You can be in a relationship with someone as a friend. Like, there's guys, like, I'm in a relationship, but there's guys, I have multiple guy friends, and they're just my friends, like, that I've met since I've been here on campus.
But you see how you say, I'm in a relationship, you know what you was talking about.
But that's a relationship. I wouldn't say that I'm dating them, or we have, a sexual type of relationship. You can have a relationship and be friends with someone.
I think this is what confuses a lot of people and causes a lot of very unnecessary heartache, is not understanding, one, what our expectations are, and then not really knowing how to communicate what our boundaries are. So when we start off as friends, you still might be kissing all upon your friend. That's confusing. I know when know you're gonna go crazy, just tell the guy, you know, I might just lose it a little bit, so be prepared. And then you guys just have to deal with it, all right? And vice versa. If you know that you're not gonna wanna be attached or you may get involved, communicate that throughout the relationship or friendship, because a title is just a title. To my sister friend who's married, did your marriage start off in a friendship?
My expectations were high, but I think I kind of lowered my standards a little bit. Once I figured out that he had feelings for me, I was like, what you like me? Like, yeah. And he like, ever since you helped me in the hospital, you was my woman. And I was like, well, I didn't know that because I was with somebody else. So, I mean, every relationship started out as friends, I think. If you're in a friendship, a sexship, a relationship, a convenience-ship, all of them start off as friendships.
That's nice. New titles, convenience ship.
No matter how much you defend your relationships, people are always going to think what they think. So we've gotten to a point where we don't really care what people think, but it's always assumed that that because, you know, he's attractive and me and we're both young and, you know, I asked Monica earlier if it would be weird that, so I have a boyfriend, if it would be weird that I went out with my best friend. We went out to dinner tonight, you know, because it's Valentine's Day. Yeah. And at first she was like, no, it wouldn't be weird. And I said, so you know, so me and Dre go to dinner, it's not going to be weird. She's like, yeah, it's going to be weird. And I'm like, well, why? She's like, well, I thought you was talking about a girl. And I'm like, well, why does it matter? I think it's exactly what you said. It's important that you establish boundaries. It's important to know what your expectations are, because I have been able to carry out a 20-plus year friendship with a guy that I have never been sexually intimate with. I think it's possible. I don't think that's always the case. I think, you know, a lot of people say best friend and sister and brother and, you know, be low-key, you know, doing some foul stuff. But I don't want to use those situations and say that it's impossible for men and women to be friends. And then I also wouldn't want my friendship with somebody that I've been friends with for 20 plus years to be a threat to any relationship that I'm in, because that's a problem that we have all the time.
I feel like where it comes down to being defined as weird or an issue is when your significant other may feel like some territorial type of way about you, or maybe they should understand the relationship or get to know that other person, or just see how the two interact, or just trust you in general to know that you're not going to do anything if no issues have ever occurred in the first place. It shouldn't be an issue for you to just bring up your friend. I mean, people have friends before they have intimate relationships. So there's going to be people that you've known your entire life, and it's not fair to you or to that other person for that significant other to try to cut that tie away.
Cool. I want to bring it back before we move on to another question. Going back to expectations. So I like to tell stories just to give y'all something to imagine. So I talk to my homegirls quite often. And, you know, we're all college educated, like everyone in this room. Some people have advanced degrees, got their jobs together. And, you know, when you go through some things in life, the last thing I'll speak for myself, the last thing that I wanted to do was to date somebody that would remind me of the past that I was trying to escape from. All right, and so my standards became extremely high. He had to have a certain type of job. He had to have a certain type of college degree. He had to be very well accomplished. And I started meeting some of these guys. But I realized a lot of questions that you guys have written down, not all of them were willing to be committed because they had so many options. Or not all of them really knew how to treat a woman with respect because they didn't necessarily learn that. So I think when we're talking about when do we know whether or not our expectations are too high, I think the simple answer is to just pay attention to who you're in relationship with and see if they're meeting them. And if they're not, are you willing to compromise? Is it something that you can live with? Because it may not be something that you should be valuing as much at that point in your life. It's a little bit of a complicated answer, but something that you can definitely put into practice. Okay, I'm going to have Ms. Kane ask the next question and provide her own answer.
You want me to read it? Okay. All right. Do you think women know how to express themselves better than men in a relationship? Or is it men just don't know how or don't want to? Got page 2. All right. What's your name again?
My name is Gerald.
Gerald? Okay. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So yes, I believe, definitely know how to express yourself better than men, and it's because it's a masculine thing, like, because it's the way society is, men feel like they don't want to say certain stuff or look a certain way, even if it's y'all one-on-one, until y'all 100% comfortable, but that takes years to happen. That takes years. Some people that's not even comfortable with some siblings they didn't live in the same house with. So that takes years to really be comfortable with somebody truly. So you don't want to look a certain way or feel a certain type of way because of how society is. That's how I feel.
Let me recap. So are you saying that you become better able to express yourself the more you know yourself and accept yourself?
That and the person that's around you too. Like the person that you express yourself to. But definitely knowing yourself really helps as well.
Yes. Yeah. We got the choir. Okay, y'all been doing okay. Any other comments, questions, feedback on that one? Okay, Brother Don. Pass that microphone. Thank you.
I think that, to be honest, I think it's just like a general population that some people are good at communicating, some are not. I've been in relationships where I feel like I'm the only giver, where I'm the only one saying, how I feel. And I've been in relationships where I'm like, damn, I don't want to tell you nothing. Like, as he said, being comfortable with the person. I think it is too that some people just aren't good social people at all. I think people try to differentiate things as, men do this, women do that. We try to put ourselves in categories, but it's just the whole human population does the same thing. I see a lot of women say, I'm a good communicator. You say, oh girl, what's wrong? Why are you acting like that? Like, I'm fine. I'm fine. Okay, so you want to talk about it? Nah, okay. And then you walk away, they're like, I just think it's funny how... I just asked you sometimes, and I ain't got time for this. It's the same thing. There's a lot of dudes who do that too. They don't do it the same way. They'd be like, she'll be like, oh, why are you looking at me like that? You'd be like, nothing, it's not really bothering me. And then you go home and you think about it, you'd be like, damn, this girl making me so mad right now. And then when you want to say something about it, she'll smile at you and you're like, oh, I just don't want to talk about it anymore. So I think, we got to think, well, we need to be able to communicate with each other better. And that's another reason why a lot of relationships just don't work out. Because we just don't communicate, and then it gets to a boiling point where it comes to that one big fight and everything comes out, and we're just saying all this stuff that we truly wanted to say at the same time. And it just comes to an end story, that's what I think.
For communication, with me, it wasn't really like a gender thing, because my dad was the one in my mother and father's relationship that was the better communicator. At least though their relationship was really toxic, he was the one that communicated even with me and my sister what was happening, and kind of taught me my communication skills. My mom was the person who was very shut down, and was the idea that like, you don't show your emotions, it was very the opposite. And so for me, my dad was the person who taught me how to communicate in my relationships. So it wasn't, I think it's more of what you're taught and what you're around, and if you have the people in your life to be able to teach you how to do that, and I think it's important. I don't think there are a lot of people who are teaching other people how to communicate, and I think that when you have that, it no longer becomes a gender thing. So I had my dad was the person to teach me how to communicate. So in my relationships, I'm better able to communicate what my expectations are in a way that is in a way that both of us can understand.
I really agree with what you're saying, but just from like my personal experience, as a child, I really grew up not having my feelings validated or cared for. So it was really hard for me to express how I felt. And so once I got older, I realized what I needed to do in order to communicate better. I took a few classes here, but then I feel like sometimes like if I communicate it and then something's not done about it, I kind of just go back to putting it all back in, not expressing myself. So.
I can relate. I can certainly relate.
And I feel like that also affects people's relationships.
communication, practice with whoever you can practice with. It doesn't have to be intimate people. Oh, y'all wasn't gonna tell me. Okay, thank you. I'm glad you guys got a lot out of it. But yeah, with communication, just practice with whoever you can practice with. So I work at Yelp, and I get paid to talk to people 8 hours straight. My job is to change people's minds. My job is to manipulate people into spending thousands of dollars. And so in order for me to do that, I have to be extremely persuasive. I have to call people out when they're lying. I have to essentially develop a variety of communication styles. I get to practice that work. Not trying to plug my job and how shady it can be sometimes, but all I'm saying is that...
Watch the chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But what I'm saying is that there is power in listening to people and communicating with them so that you can not only get what you want, but you can give them what it is that they need in that moment. It's a very beautiful thing. Just try it out. And the first step is to just listen. Just listen. Just listen. Just listen. All right. Start with your parents if you can. Challenge for the day. All right, real life scenario, and then we gotta go. Should I get back with my ex?
Yeah.
She felt like the one for me, but I messed up. And I feel like I took her for granted. She is a black woman, and my parents both like her. I think she is the right choice. I feel like we need some more details on that one. Okay.
So I think if she would allow you to get back together with her, I think it can work. But I think if, most of the time if you have to ask yourself that, it is usually no. But some factors, some people separate for a lot of different reasons. Like you can really be meant for another person and take them for granted. But you know, everybody makes mistakes. So if both you and her are on the same page, then you should try it.
The first question I would ask is just be like, one, I don't know the reason behind whatever that situation was, but like, what lesson did you learn from that? And what habits were changed? If you're saying that you took this person for granted, that would be my first question, is just like, from whatever break that was taken, what lesson did you learn from that? What habits are you changing from that? If she's willing to then accept you back, what are you doing differently so that that situation won't happen again?
I feel like a lot of women think that or believe that we tend to give a lot in our relationships, which I believe is the case. I actually feel like I don't hear enough about men talking about their experience with giving, so I'll close on this note. And this question says, why does it seem like men are always the givers in relationship? Can you answer that, please?
What you mean by giver, just because there are different types of giving, like you mean like financially provided, you mean like an emotional, like the emotional support, like what kind of giver are you talking about? Because I think that each, women and men play different roles in each, whatever giver you're speaking about.
True. Unfortunately, this Post-it note didn't specify, and I know it's 12. My time is up, and you guys all have to go. I want to leave you with you seem like you have a burning thought. Are you sure? You got some good feedback.
Yeah, I was just going to say this.
Okay. But basically, thank you guys for coming, and just generally speaking, before you walk out this door, I really, my only thing that I ask for you all is to just keep practicing, and don't wait until somebody is your boyfriend or your girlfriend, but anybody that you are devoting your time and your resources to. Honor yourself enough to develop a partnership that you want with that person on any type of level. Just take it a little bit more serious. All right. Then when we start talking about society and our history and our culture and social media and parents, like there's layers that can strip away a lot of the surface talk that's going on in here, so we can begin to understand, oh, this is why this is a pattern, or this is why I'm having trust issues, or like you were, getting to, this is why I'm stuffing my emotions in the box. And spend a little time on that, and then progressively move forward to develop tools that'll help you change and become the type of partner or lover that you want to be. I believe everybody deserves to be the type of lover they want to be, despite what we've been raised around. Like, we can change. It's very possible. But sometimes it feels like it's not, because we're stuck in an environment where we keep seeing the same things over and over and over and over again. So it's like, either I don't want to get with anybody, or like one of the women were saying, we just adopt the behavior and perpetuate it, So my mom was of the thought, I will keep my language clean, because y'all don't know me like that, but my mom was of the thought to where I should not trust any man. Exactly. That's what my face did. She's all like, don't trust these, don't do this, don't do that. Basically, anything that I do, I need to make sure I'm getting paid. So you can kind of develop like what type of framework I was being raised in. And there's a lot of women that are growing up in this, and then they treat nice guys very terribly, because their parents are coaching them to protect them from getting hurt. So it gets deep. It gets real deep, and it's something that I would love to talk about on a deeper level. But 1 hour is really hard to do that. 1 hour is really hard to do that. So I do have a lot of questions, but you wanted to talk a little bit longer. Is there something on your heart that you want to discuss?
Oh, because I had stepped in here for a second, and I didn't want to be rude, like eating here.
Oh.
Because I had it was going to be loud, so I had stepped out to eat.
Oh.
And then I came back.
Appreciate that.
So I don't know what even happened.
Just talking, questions. People are writing questions on these papers. Like, one question, do you believe in gender roles or complete equality in all aspects? Anybody can answer that if you want. Go ahead.
I feel like it shouldn't just be one-sided. I feel like it should be like a group effort type of thing, like equality. My zodiac sign is a Libra, so I'm all about like balancing and stuff. So I feel like it should be, each person should put more so the same amount into the relationship. Mm-hmm. So it's not like just one person giving or putting in more than the other person, and then that can create like confrontation or whatever.
So I have a follow-up question. Is feminism killing chivalry?
I think so, actually.
I think that.
You seem passionate about that. Hold on. Go ahead, because I haven't heard from you. Sorry, Donald. Go ahead.
I think it is, because you get, in today's age, you get a lot of strong women, and there's nothing wrong with being, obviously, there's nothing wrong with being a strong woman, but like there's women out there who kind of like step on your toes and like, oh, I don't need you to open the door for me. But it's like, okay, like if I'm being nice and if I want you like to have a seat, or if I want to open the door for you, why would you step on my toes and kind of be aggressive? You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of aggressiveness out there. I don't think it's necessary. And there's like, it's almost like there's two different types. Like some women would say they're not feminist, and it's confusing because like I thought if you're a woman, you just automatically kind of like have a feminist point of view. But I think the difference is the aggressiveness. You know what I'm saying? Like there's women out there like, oh, man or this, man or that. And it's like, it's a lot of that going around right now, and I can't take it no more.
Okay.
It's like crazy.
So a lot of generalization, boxing you in.
Yeah. Especially, with now with all the Me Too movement, and like, I feel like men are put in this, like all men are being put in this impossible situation where I'm almost scared to even go up to a woman now, because she might think I'm trying to do something. And it's like, obviously being an African American man, a lot of women could be scared of the African American man. And like, I really have to be mindful of how I approach women of all colors because they might be scared of me and they might have these preconceived notions that are not necessarily true. And like you said, like a lot of the good men out there, they're out there, but all these preconceived notions and ideas are kind of like just hurting us.
Okay, Donald and Michaela.
Okay, so I wanted to I was going to say something. Well, I'll say it first and then I'll go for what he said, because I wanted to bring up a pretty big point. I think that fake feminism is making it like so chivalry is dying, because there's a true feminism is where we just think women and stuff we're equal and whatnot. I mean, nobody's truly equal. We're not. No, men and women are true. We're not equal. Not in saying like that we are both aren't capable of doing stuff. I'm just saying like there's stuff that women can do that men can't do. We can't make babies. Women are powerful for that. And there's things that men can do that women can't do. And I think we have to acknowledge that and go into that aspect and realize that's the truth of life, and that we just can't say that women are going to do this and men are going to do that. But in the same standpoint, there's nothing that women can't do. Like there's no saying that women can't go drive a NASCAR race, or you can't go, you know what I'm saying? So back into what I was saying about fake feminism, a lot of women are doing this thing now where they think that because you're a feminist that you have to be better than a man type thing. And I truly believe this is about to be a real hot take. I really truly believe that this fake feminist movement has a real agenda against the black man. And this is like especially the straight black man. Let's put it like that. The straight black, they have a pretty big agenda on the straight black man. And I think it's pretty sad to see that. And I see a lot of black women who don't really use good critical thinking. Not saying all black women, I'm saying the ones who are deficient in critical thinking, they're kind of falling into the trap of, black men ain't shit because a white woman told me it was okay. And I think that's pretty sad.
Oh, got it.
I wanted to piggyback off of, what is your name? Bobby. I wanted to piggyback off what you were saying. My mother was in a very physically abusive relationship, and so and I think that as children, the first relationship that we observe and traits and things that we pick up are from our mom and our dad. And so because of the experiences that my mother went through, I was taught a lot of behavior as far as when it came to men to be my mom had a very strong black woman persona. It was very like, do it yourself, don't depend on these people. And it kind of shut me out of being able to be vulnerable. I wasn't really taught how to relate to men in a very vulnerable way. I was taught how to relate to men in a very trusting way. And so I think that's what a lot of what you're speaking to as far as when it comes to chivalry. I think a lot of women who have been taught from their mothers, who have been experiencing these really harsh realities, that we end up picking up a lot of traits that remove us from being vulnerable, and kind of just we move through this world as like, I'm a strong black woman, I don't need you to do something, I don't need you to help me, because it's a wall to prevent hurt to come in, because through generations women have experienced so much hurt. And not to say that, and not to excuse it as if that behavior is okay, but more just like as a layer of understanding, that I think that that's where that comes from. It's not like we don't need you. I think that it's the exact opposite, is that we do. And that because we need you so much and that we've been hurt so much, that we just shut that whole wall down, that we just shut that whole opening away, because we need you so much and it hasn't, we've been hurt by you so much. And so that kind of door closes.
I appreciate that. Thank you. My attack, like my response was more focused on feminism, like the idea of feminism. I think maybe I need to redefine the word feminism, because I was specifically relating it to the feminism aspect, you know what I'm saying? And I don't even know, I'm confused on what feminism is almost, because I honestly think white women are more aggressive, like who call themselves feminists. They're like super aggressive. It's like crazy.
That's called white
Like,
feminism.
I don't know if somebody from a woman's perspective, can you define feminism, what it means to you? And is it different from a black woman?
for all women.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I do want to thank both of y'all for actually stating that, because you're not wrong. Feminists, or at least to me, feminism is killing chivalry, but that's because just like, if you really think about it, looking back into history of how it started, it's mainly created from a white woman. She did have help from a black woman, if I'm not mistaken. Her name is Ida Mills. And you know, they were doing rock and doing a thing for women and all that. But, you know, whoever, I don't know what his name is. Thank you. Because I don't have time to learn about that.
Yeah, she was racist.
But you know, she did not care. She wanted to do what she had to do for women, wear power. Ida B. Wells, on the other hand, had a whole ass family she had to take care of, which is why she split off from her and created womanism. So I really feel as if when it comes to feminism, when you really think about it, like, it's not really split off in color either. Like, feminism to me is really just, you're somebody where you feel like, okay, men don't need to be here, we got this ourselves, and all this other stuff. But if you know you don't feel that way and you want to care towards your brothers, you want to care towards your sisters, you want to care towards, like, the children, growing them up in the community and care about your family and whatnot, you most likely are a womanist than you are a feminist. Which is why most of the time, when you get people, like when you open the door for them and stuff like that, most likely they're feminists and whatnot, and there's other people that say they're feminists, but they don't understand the meaning too much, and then that's where, a little bit where I think we should kind of open the door and ask them really like, do you believe that this feminism to you, and kind of open it up to where it's like explain womanism to them a little bit, and then they can kind of see like how they shift towards womanism more than they do a feminist, because I used to have the same problem until someone like opened that door for me, and now when I looked up what womanism was against feminism, it's just like, I'm more of a womanist than I am a feminist. Of course we have our feminist tendencies, because I won't lie, some women will do that, but I'm more of a womanist than I will be feminist.
Yeah. I think that is, I think that's just something that, to be real, is most likely going to change as we all continue living. Because when we get older and we have more responsibilities, some of these theories don't relate as much. So like, probably as a woman or a man, somebody who's being courted, after going through, and this may not be anyone's situation here, but I'll use me for example. I was like super pro-feminist back in college. You probably, remember, turned up, all the way turned up. And someone holding my door for me, like I would identify I was that woman, like, no, I gotta, and after a while, I said, you know what, if a man wants to open my door, I'm gonna let him open my door. I need a break. I need a break from being so strong. And it was actually a Korean queer man who was walking with me to Skyline High School, and I was carrying a table and I was carrying all this stuff. And he was like, Talia, I know you're a strong black woman and everything, but I got it, let me help you. And I mean, he just called me out. He called me out, and I said, oh wow, like, I think sometimes it just feels good to be validated. Like, you know what, I know you're strong. I get you're strong, but I got you. And honestly, I bet if you were just to say like those two sentences, it'll probably change up the whole game. It'll probably change up the whole game. And I'll just leave it at that. It's tricky, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yes and yes.
I was just gonna say, just to add to it, I do have to go in a second, but first of all, there's different waves of feminism that have different ideologies. There's also black feminists who have written about and even against white feminism in the ways in which it's been deployed in a lot of ways, right? So that line between womanism and feminism is like so thin, I don't even know if we can fully say that some people are totally womanist, some people are totally black feminists, right? So in any particular discipline or theory, there's debates within the theory, right? And so some black feminists have done some really great work thinking about like how oppression kind of piles on, you know, intersectionality and those kind of things. And then there's also like people who don't identify as feminists and identify as womanists, who do feel a sense of, you know, I don't want to identify as feminist because of how white feminists have treated black feminists in the past, and maybe even some ideological differences. So to pin down feminism as one thing is really actually very hard to do. There is a really good song though that when I met my partner now, I told him, this is the kind of feminist I am, and it's a Jill Scott song called I Need You, and she lists all these things. I can kill the spider above my bed, even though I'm scared. I could do this, I could do that, I could be a police officer, I could be a this, a that, a construction worker. I can do all of that, but I still need you, right? And I think what Talia is saying makes sense to me, because it's like sometimes you do have to disarm that, but it's a lot of times it's coming from a place where structurally, if we're not strong, we won't make it, and we know that. And so that's probably the heat you're feeling, and to be able to disarm that or be patient with it really helps. And my boyfriend, he's a feminist. Men can be feminists too, and it helps a lot, believe me.
Do y'all feel like you're at an age to where you need to be like letting go of baggage, or are you still like in the collecting baggage phase?
Oh, I don't think it can be. I think it kind of like depends on who you are and what you've been through. Me, I'm 27, and I still feel like I'm like dealing with things that I just can't shake. And I may feel like that for another 20 years. It's just something that you as a person have to go through in your development. But I think what helps is information, being informed on issues, being aware of things, being educated within yourself on who you are, and also what the society's view of you. I think all of that can help, and also support from other people. Mentorship, friendship, putting a value on friendship. We was talking about earlier about the relationship thing, but I think that we underestimate human interaction because we kind of put the word relationship in this box, and the word actually is a lot bigger than what we make it out to be.
Yeah.
It's actually more of like a human interaction thing. Like when you interact with anybody on a daily basis, you have to be mindful of, you have so much power to influence somebody's life in a negative way or in a positive way, and we don't understand that. And we just are quick to be kind of selfish and like, oh, that's not my friend, that's not my girlfriend, I don't have to do this, that. But in reality, you, as an educated person, as a person who is self-aware and aware of others' feelings, you have to put a higher value on human interaction. And that's what has been lost in the African American community, especially because of society and how society has destroyed us as people. But we have to kind of get that back, and then I think that's kind of like the first step to having better relationships, is to understand the value of human interaction.
I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
I don't raise my hands. Ms. Talia knows I don't like to raise my hands, so we'll put it like that. But I think a big part of it is really as he was saying, you know, maturity. Really, I think that's what you're kind of getting at, was maturity. Because I see a lot of people. Well, we'll put it like this. The way I was taught to be a man was, you could be 50 years old and still be a little boy, and you could be 16 and be a man. And I see a lot of people. For me, I think I've matured a lot since me and Ms. Talia used to interact. I've matured a lot because I would say some OP stuff at UYDC, and you know, I matured a lot to the sense now because I think it used to, because I used to get bullied a lot. People didn't validate what I used to say. So I would say something nobody cared. So I'd be like, okay, if you guys don't care, then I'm just not going to care what I say either. Just say whatever I want. And I think now it's to the point now where I just let it go. I say, you know what, that's just how things used to be. I let myself be bullied. It wasn't, they didn't bully me, I let them do that to me. And so I realized that, and then now I'm able to just let stuff go. I say, you know what, I reap what I sow. If I didn't respect myself, then why are you going to respect me? You know what I'm saying? You know, I was just talking to your friend, I don't know if you went to her. Yeah, but I was just telling him about, you know, females and men, about how they interact with themselves in a relationship. And, you know, I said, you know, a lot of females nowadays, they say, I want to liberate my body. You know what I'm saying? I said, that's cool. You know, that's cool. But I'm going to respect you with the same amount of respect you put out. You know what I'm saying? And the same thing for men. Okay, man, you want to have some hoes? That's cool. So, you know, the time when you really want a respectful young lady, and she says, you know what, you used to have hoes, like, you know, and you think, oh, you really want to have this girl, but she'll know what you used to do, and she'll give you the same amount of respect that you put out yourself. And I think that's really a big part of just maturity and, you know, letting stuff go and stuff like that. Even though I may have not worded that very well, so you guys got it, but, you know, it is, baggage is just, you know, based on maturity. Because, you know, I got some aunts and stuff who went through divorces and they got a lot of baggage, even though they said they let stuff go.
It makes you who you are almost.
Yeah.
You could really tell. Like I really like psychology, and I could really, you're from too.
Oh.
You know. But you could really tell when somebody said they let something go. You can tell as soon as they start saying somebody's name, their face, and the way they start acting, and the way they talk to their kids about it. It's pretty sad.
I think sometimes the best thing to do is to actually embrace whatever it is. You know, so I have a friend, we were just talking, her name's Destiny, and we were just talking, and she said, well, Talia, that's because your father wasn't in your life. Like, you know, women like us who haven't had our dads, like, we're at a loss. Like the women that had their fathers in their life, like, they have an advantage. And I'm not sure, you know, for the men, if you guys say the same things, but I said, well, you could go ahead and believe that. And because for a long part of my life, I was trying to let that go. And then one day I said, you know what, let me go ahead and accept it. Because what I don't know is, I know that I'm not this other woman that has had the father in her life. And I actually don't know if that's even better. I don't know. We assume it is because we've heard so many stories about it. But some of the things that we've been through that we're trying to let go, I find that embracing it and accepting it actually makes me proud of who I am and who I've become. So because of that, because of my situation with my father, yeah, I make some interesting choices, and I'm okay with that. And that's it. That's as simple as it gets. I'm okay with it, you know? So, you know, I know you had something to say. Go ahead. The question before that, what were we saying? It kind of went all over the place. Baggage, feminism, being aggressive. And that's the thing, there's no one right way to do it. There's no one wrong way to do it. I just think that why I find this so important is I feel like society tells us a lot of bad things. We get shown a lot of just bad stuff. Like Love and Hip Hop, I actually really love that show. I do. But we do see a lot of fighting. We do see a lot of bickering. We do just see problem after problem and argument after argument after argument. And seldom do we see this over here, like people really digging deep into where their baggage comes from. It may not make for a good show, obviously, but you know, yeah.
To break that down to Hollywood and the media, not wanting African American families to be shown on TV and movies.
Yeah.
And that's like a whole other issue. That's something that we got to be aware of to not fall into that trap. I mean, you can still like something, of course, if you're aware of what kind of trap it is.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say two things. One, I'm really happy that we're having this conversation and the way it's going, because a lot of times when we have conversations like that, you have the whole men and women start yelling at each other and they don't like to listen. I think it's pretty cool that we're all taking the time to listen to what each other is really saying and then forming our answer after that. I think that's really cool, and I really like this conversation we're having. Second, I think is, I hate loving hip hop, not because of, I actually don't like it because it's ratchet, but I think the main reason I don't like it is because I know you are a critical thinker, and I know you know who you are, but a lot of people I'll say it like this, most people are idiots. Most people are stupid.
You are not wrong.
And a lot of people, common sense is common, and a lot of people, they see what they see on the TV, and they think, you know what, that's how I'm supposed to act. And I see too many people acting like that, and they think, you know what, if you're going to do this, I'm going to start yelling at you and try to cause a scene. And I really think my personality is not a good mix with that, because it comes from, oh, you want to cause a scene in here? We can make a movie then. And I can turn it up real quick. But, that's just my ignorance. I know that's how it is. But
I totally agree. I think like that. Like, I don't watch that show because, like, I've tried to watch, like, I watched the entire first season. And there's some stuff in there that was good. But I don't watch it because I tried to, like, look at each individual woman.
Yeah.
And I just can't, like, even though, of course, I'm not going to connect with them, but, like, I can't at least go on the level of, like, what do we have sort of, like, in common for me to be able to still watch this, to at least see how you progress, so I can kind of see, like, what's going on, because it just doesn't work for me. Like, most of the shows I watch, I'm on Animal Planet damn near all day, every day, because this is the field I want to go into. So there's, like, my connection to watch all these shows, to watch animals going into surgery and whatnot. I kind of watch the reality show, like, My 600-Pound Life, because that's a different type of surgery I could learn about if I ever change from animal to humans. It's like, I have personal connections to some of these shows that I watch, like HGTV. Lord knows I am not making no house, but I find that so interesting.
Every woman's favorite TV show. Shout out to my mom.
But then it's just like, as soon as it gets to this type of, like, Basketball Wives, Housewives of Atlanta, or all these other shows, it's just like, I can't find anything that connects me to them like that. Basketball Wives, I've watched a little longer just because I love basketball, but then I have to stop watching it because I'm like, y'all don't play no basketball.
And I wanted to put one more thing out there. One, ain't nobody on Basketball Wives even married to a basketball player. One was married to a football player, but that's a whole other story. But I think the biggest thing I learned, because I went to Haiti with EOYDC, and I went with like a bunch of NFL players. The biggest thing I learned that I already knew, but didn't really resonate with me, was you watch those interviews on TV, that's really just not who they are. And it gets me so mad watching reality TV, because I'm like, I know this is not how you guys really are. You believe the NFL players like, yeah, I think this was a good game, blah 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 blah. And you go to Haiti, and then they're over here throwing paper towels in the bathroom while I'm trying to eat poop and whatnot, and saying that bugs are going to go up my butt. That's a whole other story, and they're trying to scare me. But people just don't act the way they do, and that's really just so you could get like immediate representation. They're just trying to get the bag. And I think there's just too many stupid people. There's too many stupid people out there that make for that to be an influence on their lives. And the other thing too I hate about it is not the fact, if it was just a couple TV shows like this, I really wouldn't be mad. But why is it that we can't have any really wholesome TV shows with a black family, and why is it always got to be you acting ghetto? Why do we have to watch Empire where I see a bunch of people just acting so ignorant all the time? Like, I understand we got Blackish and stuff, but we don't have, that's like one out of very few. Why is it that I gotta watch Power and stuff, I mean, we live in the hood. I'm a hood too. Like, I live in East Oakland, California, but I don't act like that. Not everybody's like that. Like, why is that the only media representation that we can get,
Because that's how society wants it.
That's how society wants it, and like, black people have to start. They have to make our own Hollywood, honestly.
Like BET not even owned by black people.
That's like we have to do.
Yeah, that's actually one of my biggest dreams, is to get rich and really start my own movie production studios. Like
start now.
Oh, Tyler Perry's doing it.
Trust me, I've already started. I'm starting my first online business system development right now. And
all you have to do is start now, find other black moguls, and partner up and go together.
Yeah, so that's my plan. But I had dreams.
Black Panther, that's gonna be probably the biggest movie.
And Walker is that.
We forgot about Blade though.
Hey, and then we had.
You feel me?
Yeah,
he was. That was a black
That was Wesley
character.
Snipes.
Yeah.
The black kids, that's one of the
Yeah,
black.
but nobody talks about that.
And we had a trilogy. And then we had Hancock.
It's not that they forgot about them. I think it's just because like these movies are older, and then plus these movies were like, even though I'm not saying like our whole everything that's going on with us hasn't happened back then, but it wasn't as like harmful as much as it's getting harmful as it is now, which is why it's so relevant for us to go watch Black Panther. Let's hope that it's not bad. I don't want it to be bad, but like everything is getting worse and worse by the minute, day by day, every 15 minutes, each second, every time a baby is freaking born, like things are getting worse for us. So it's just like I feel like they're putting so much on this movie because of how things are getting bad. And like the movie has done so much. Like it's the one movie out of all of the movies that's had the most black people work on it. Black director, black assistant director, black PAs, like the whole production damn near was black.
Yeah.
So it's like this is the one movie that's real prevalent because it's had so much black into it. I mean, shit, Kendrick Lamar is about to be in this movie every goddamn where. Like,
The soundtrack, I heard.
this is black.
We got SOB in there, Mozzie. I just think it's crazy though. I'm kind of, this is how I think about it. Because I'm a nerd, I like comic books. It just irritates me that a lot of people didn't know who Black Panther was before Civil War came out. And now they're trying to act all black is woke, blah, 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 blah about the movie. And I think, like they don't even know who Static Shock is. And if you really want it to be awesome, I like black people, you would go buy you guys some Static Shock. Because Static Shock was created by a black man. Because everybody's like, oh, I want Black Panther. Static Shock was created by a black man who grew up in the hood, got what in the way he became a superhero was, his friend gave him a gun and said, here's your bullet, go kill him, and he said no. And then the police came in and threw a bunch of chemicals at them, and a bunch of people died, and then other people got superpowers, and that's how it came to be. And it was a bunch of black people with superpowers, and it came from DC, and it was a DC comic book, but it was there was like a divide. So there was DC, and then there was a thing separate from it that was made by a bunch of black people. And this is gonna be funny, but also the creator of Static Shock also made a superhero who was an obese white man who became a muscular black man when he said black power. Just look at him, he just made that as a joke though.
Interesting.
But there's that, and then so a lot of people don't, they just kind of want to be woke, and I don't like to say the word woke because a lot of people are woke, but they don't know what they're talking about. But I just think it's funny how people put all their baskets into one egg and they don't even know like who Static Shock is. Like I saw a Twitter post and that made me so mad. She said, name any black superhero that doesn't have the black in their name. And then you saw people say, they said Piccolo, they said Hancock, Static Shock, Captain Marvel. We get in a Captain Marvel movie. Most people didn't know Captain Marvel was a black woman with the afro. Now,
Oh, I didn't know that.
we could talk about Spider-Man's black, Captain America was black. If you go into a comic book store, you will find black Spider-Man, I just think it's funny how people are just doing too much for this Black Panther movie. It's just a movie, We have Blade, we had Hancock, we had, some other black superhero movies. I can't think of the names right now, but we had a lot of them, and people just didn't go out to support, but it's, people are just now becoming black. It's just funny.
Well, just have fun.
Hopefully nobody shoots up the movie theater.
They won't.
They won't.
We're saying it won't, but that's a real fear.
I'm gonna put that out there. That's not going to happen. We are all going to have fun with our lives, with our relationships.